So we're going to start things off with our man Sheldon. Where's Sheldon? Is he here? Right? We're going to start things off. He is a film composer and music expert. Let's hear it for him. Big round of applause.
Hi there. I'm a musician, and for the last 35 or so years, 35 and more, I made my living writing music for things, mostly for film and television, but sometimes for other more exotic things. And now I teach how to do that at Berklee College of Music, where we have a film scoring department. It's actually ridiculous. I mean, there's like 300 majors who want to learn how to do film scoring, and it's the only place you can get a film scoring degree, and that's as an undergraduate on the planet. So that's what we do there. Now, so what I do is I write music for stories that get told, and the question that I have to deal with kind of all the time is, well, why do I need to put some music in here? What does music do in a movie? And we're going to be talking about fear. And the question is, what does music do in a movie relative to fear? And what I want to do to talk about that is I actually want to talk about the real function of music. So the reason, what you guys don't usually get unless you're in the business of making movies and television, is what a movie looks like when there's no music in it. And when there's no music in the movie weirdly feels like it's missing something really important. What it's missing, generally, is the emotional context in which all the activity is happening. It turns out that when you make a movie, that the visual tools of making a movie are not really perfect for all of the storytelling that has to be done in the movie. And that you actually do need a little more help. And that help comes in the form of music. And that's what I do. And that's what a film composer does. What a film composer does is a film composer tries to produce a situation in which you are able to feel the things that the movie is communicating. So there's a relationship between music and feeling. And as a matter of fact, what I think is that relationship is incredibly important. That it's what's the thing that's most important about it is that we have all of these feelings. As we live in a really emotionally complicated, rich environment in our consciousness, in our relationship to the world. But, well, here, let me put it like this. You, come on up here. Can you come up here? What's your name? He said his name is Ian.
My name is Ian.
Hi, Ian. Ah! Oh, he didn't even jump. He didn't even jump. Did I scare you?
Yes.
Yes, I did. How do you know that you were scared?
My heart rate accelerated.
You counted your heartbeat?
I could feel it.
Wait, how could you feel it?
I don't know, like a warmth. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think that you knew that by counting your heartbeat. As a matter of fact, I don't think that because your heartbeat would take some time, but you knew right away what you felt, right?
Yes.
More or less. Okay, I'm done with you. You can go away. No, the question is, how do we know what we feel? It turns out that that's not a simple question. That's actually an incredibly complicated question. And that what actually, I think, happens, well, let me put it like this. We think that there are certain things that we would feel that are instantly understandable to us. That is, we have a direct contact, a direct informational contact with our feelings. And that what the nature of our feelings is something which is immediately obvious to us. And what I say is bullshit. That is not true even in the least. That what we actually have, what we actually are, is what Freud thought. That we are mysteries to ourselves. That we have feelings. We have an internal life which is not clear. Now, if our internal life is not clear, that presents some problems to us. As a matter of fact, we can experience those problems all the time. And we do experience those problems all the time. What I think is that what music does is that music helps us to know what we feel. That what music does is music is a language that our insides use to talk to us about what we feel. Now, I don't expect you all to believe that. What I want to do is I want to try to set up a couple of circumstances where you can think about that. By the way, the fact that that's true, because it is the entire justification for me ever making any money in the last 35 years. That's the truth. Because if it's the case that music doesn't do that, then why are people paying me all this money? Okay? So let's examine kind of what happens when we feel something and we hear a piece of music. Well, let's just say that we feel some situation. An example that I like to use is when the World Trade Center was bombed. Now, the World Trade Center got bombed, and it collapsed. And it was a really amazing, horrible, world-changing event. And what it did to our everyday life was that everything in our everyday life kind of tilted in another direction, right? And by the way, I bet you felt a lot when you saw the towers come down. But I bet you that you didn't know exactly what you felt. That what you needed was something that was going to help you identify the nature of your feelings. So psychologists, we have an actual psychologist here, but psychologists have, we normally think that when you smile because you're happy, right? Right, you feel happy and then you smile. But they've discovered, of course, that that's actually backwards. That if you smile, you'll feel happier. You do it. Smile, you'll feel happy. I think that what happened with Ian when I scared him is that he jolted. That jolt, that little jolt, told him something, and he had to interpret that jolt. And that jolt set off a whole giant set of emotional algorithms, emotional figuring. And that set of emotional figuring ended up with him saying, "I'm afraid." It was not instant. It was way not instant. So the content of our feelings is something, in my opinion, that requires, it actually is made in a feedback mechanism. So that if what we do is that we respond to a situation with what we call a feeling, that what that is the beginning actually of a feeling conversation with ourselves. That we'd have, well, let's put it like this. We think that there are certain base feelings. Like it would be really hard for someone to say, "I'm hungry," and for me to say, "I doubt it." Right? I mean, they're hungry. They know what they feel. They feel hungry. So hunger is like one of those things that we think is like a base feeling, right? You might think that fear is a base feeling. I don't think so. I'm not even certain that hunger is a base feeling. I'm not sure what the base feelings are. But I know that once we start feeling things, we go through an interpretive exercise. And that interpretive exercise is what gives us the content of our feelings. Music is part of that process. So I teach guys how to write music to help you feel certain things. And I have a student here. I have to always have people, they come up to me, they say, well, how do I make people feel sad? Like there's some algorithm, like there's some musical thing that is sadness. But there's not. Or that there's some musical thing that is heroism, like, right? That's heroic, right? It's not. It's a kind of heroism. It's a kind of heroism that's organized by your understanding of the language of movies and the language of music. But there's not a one-to-one relationship between the feeling and the music that will evoke that feeling. So there's a book I read by Charles Rosen, which is an incredibly wrong-headed book. He's a very smart man. Incredibly wrong-headed book where he talks about how certain musical gestures have certain feelings attached to them, which is wrong. Okay? What there is... Are we at the point? No? Okay, sorry. I'll get there. I'll be done in a second. The concept that there are gestures, musical gestures, that mean something to us is actually, and that there are some that are root gestures, they're basic gestures, that might have some direct emotional impact that's identifiable as this thing, like fear. So if I do fear, right, it's like... Let me go down an octave because it'll sound a little bit better. Hello, what'd I do? Right? Jaws. And you go, oh yeah, it's low, and it's like repetitive. You can think about it till the cows come home. There's nothing about that that's inherently scary. There is no universal language. There is no universal language, which music is. All of that is a convenient lie. What there is the fact that music speaks to us in a language that we learn. And that in the learning of that language, we learn how we are, who we are, and what we feel. And that is the power of music, and that's the importance of music for fear.
Stay there, stay there. Let's hear it. Sheldon, how are you feeling right now?
I'm happy I'm done talking.
A few questions for you. You've been doing this for a long time. You obviously have thought about it a ton. You teach it. I think for most of us, I would guess, if we're movie lovers, we probably don't know that much about who's scoring these movies other than like John Williams, right? Everybody knows John Williams. And then beyond John Williams, maybe who else do you know? Danny Elfman, maybe, right? Hans Zimmer, right. So there's a handful of them. But for somebody like you, is there like a one or two people that you look at that you just sort of see operating in the medium that you're in, which is scoring pictures, and go like, man, that is the tops. That's somebody really at the top of their game.
Okay, so the first thing is that if you know of them, if they actually scored a movie and you saw the movie, they're pretty good. Okay? I mean, the process of that is so hard to get through that they're pretty good. let me put it like this. If they weren't good, that movie didn't come out. Okay? I don't think that there are great composers. There are people who made an impact on the language of composing.
Okay.
I teach a class on this actually, and it's called. We take a composer, we look at their work, and there's a couple of guys who are in that list, and we rotate them. And two of the big guys for me are Bernard Herrmann, who's an amazing, amazing film composer, and a guy named Tom Newman. And what's really important about each of them is that they created a certain set of language, a kind of a grammar that really determined how we do things now. So they were very impactful. That's what I think.
And how about, is there a movie or two that you look at and go like, if I really want to start paying attention to the importance of music to movies, what's the one or two movies to watch?
Okay, so first of all, you should, the one that I would refer you to first of all is either Vertigo or Psycho, either of those two. The score is incredibly important to how the movie works. I actually am, as I said, Tom Newman is amazing. And if you watch The Shawshank Redemption that everybody knows, or if you watch the movie American Beauty, which is another brilliant movie with another brilliant score, those are real important to me.
Very good. One final question. Aside from sort of looking up your bio and sort of seeing movies and television that you've scored, if I want to kind of see your work or see you in action, do I have an opportunity to do that?
You do. So, but it's not just me. It's me in a class. What we do, I run a thing called the Berklee Silent Film Orchestra. What we do is that we score silent films, and we perform the scores live to the films in theaters. And we originally got started with a commission from the Coolidge Corner Theater in 2010, but since then we've scored 13 silent features, and we are now doing things. Well, our newest film is for Universal Pictures. It's they're doing a restoration of The Man Who Laughs. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. And we're going to be premiering that score at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences as the opening act for the Turner Classics Movie Festival in LA at the end of April. But before then, we are reprising another score, which you can come see, which is the score for Battleship Potemkin. Again, another very, very important movie by Eisenstein. And we're going to be doing that. Places you can go, or you can see us at the Cabot Theater, at least I think at the Cabot Theater in Beverly, sort of the last Saturday of January, and then the Thursday before that, we're going to be at the Avon Theater in Providence, Rhode Island. And I strongly recommend that you see it. It really is something that's really quite marvelous, and it's the neatest thing I ever did, and I want you all to come see it.
One more time, let's hear it for Sheldon Mirowitz. And worth mentioning, just as a reminder, all of our folks who are up here speaking, they're going to be hanging out too. So if you got more questions for them, you want to talk to them a little bit more about what you hear them talking about, feel free to do so. So who's done VR before, virtual reality? Who's never put one of these headsets on before, doesn't know much about it? Cool. So we're about split, which is, does that sound about right? Is that where the population is at large? Yeah, pretty much split. All right, well, this guy has been doing this for a long time. He knows a ton about it, 360 video stuff, what's going on in the VR world. Big brain on this guy, so please welcome him up to the stage, Mr. Kirk Membry.
My name's Kirk Membry. I'm a senior experience designer at MadPow. We're a design agency that's here in Boston as well as up in New Hampshire. I'm from New Hampshire, as you can tell. So my background, well, for my job, I'm an experience designer. So I do user interface design and stuff like that. My own personal hobbies and things have been photography for years, and the reason I bought a camera about 10, 12 years ago is specifically for shooting panoramic videos, or panoramic stills, I should say. Video didn't exist at the time for 360s. So I've been shooting for about 12 years doing that. I've done stuff for like NBC Sports and all sorts of places all over the country, a lot of like virtual tours and things. And I wanted to mix my professional job with my interest. So I'm kind of focusing now on like immersive UX. You know, how do you make the 360 experience or the virtual reality experience much better? And you know, getting into fear and stuff like that, I think it's a good topic because there's a lot of scary games and things. Some people are just afraid of VR because they think it's going to freak them out, as Edgar will find out in a little bit. And but what is fear? You know, people are afraid of things. You can be afraid of something, like going into a haunted house. You know, like it's on your terms. You decide you're going to go there, and you know you're going to get scared. You're going to watch a scary movie. There's also fears that just come about. You know, you're driving down the road and a truck swerves in front of you, and you get freaked out in the moment. For myself, Friday night, I came home to my condo complex on fire. And luckily, nobody's hurt, everybody's fine. My place is okay. But the level of fear was pretty amazing from that, just watching it burn with nothing to do. Not that that really plays into anything else here, I just thought it was interesting because I've experienced it firsthand. So what I want to do is I'm going to have Edgar come up, and we're going to put him through a little bit of a VR experience. He doesn't know what it is yet.
Should I be afraid?
You could be afraid.
He's literally like, I've sort of tried to get him. We have a little time before this thing starts where we talk, and we were kind of getting our stuff in order, and he would not tell me what was going to happen when I put this on.
Yeah, I just asked him, you know, what kind of things are you afraid of?
Yeah, I know, you were appropriate. Like, are you afraid of heights? Afraid to fly?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So what do I got to do here?
We're going to set up down
here,
here, not on the stage because we don't need anybody to take a flyer. So come down here.
Cool.
I'm going to have you put on the headset. And it should be mapped over to the other monitor. Actually, give me that headset for 1 second. Sorry, I got to load up the app for you. Hold on.
Okay.
Hang on.
Guys, that was really scary. Oh, it is freaky in there. No, it was fine. It was like a lobby. It was like a hotel bar. That's what I was seeing.
Yeah, that's
Anyway.
the Oculus Rift. Before I get into this, I want to just say that I've been no, don't go in there. I'm going to restart this. I was interested in VR for years. I worked for a video game company, magazine that reviewed video games, and back in the 90s, I had a chance to use the VFX-1, which was a very early VR headset. It was like 40 pounds. It was ridiculous, and it was horrible. And, you know, VR has had a couple of false starts over time. Yeah. I feel right now is an awesome time for VR. And I know it's only going to get better as technology gets better. But right now, it's finally at a point, I mean, when I put this thing on the first time, it brought tears to my eyes. I was like, this is what I wanted 20-something years ago. And now it's here.
Cool.
So let me get this loaded up again. Sorry about that.
All right, that's okay. All right, there we go. So, and again, folks, if you direct your attention over to that monitor, is that it? Is that where we're up on?
Yeah, it'll show.
So you guys can look at that monitor and see what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Okay. All right. You're going to look at the left door. You're going to press your thumb button.
Press my thumb button. Look at the left door.
Yeah, just the left door. There you go. And press one of the thumb buttons. It might be the lower one. There you go. Okay. Here we go.
What is happening? Do I hit ready?
Yeah, hit ready. There you go.
You guys see what I'm doing?
Yep, we can see you. Give it a moment. It's got to load. So describe what's going on. I'll give you the microphone for your other hand.
No,
We got some planes that are shooting things. That's not good. I think I just got killed somehow. Well, now I'm on a precipice. There's a beautiful. Can I just go sit on that sofa right there? I mean, that is a.
Yeah,
Nope.
look to your right a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Now we gotta. Hey. Can I shoot with this thing in my hand?
You're just.
I just have to sit here and take this.
Yeah, look down. Look down all the way.
Oh man, that is freaky. Holy cow.
And look up as well.
I don't want to.
Yeah, turn around. Look behind you.
Oh my God. This is like, yeah, I definitely feel like I am too high up and not safe at all. This does not, I don't understand why I don't have a gun. This is a video game. These things are shooting at,
So he put you on a little platform there.
Can I walk, what's
Yeah,
gonna happen?
you can step a little bit. Notice how he's walking.
You know what's,
He feels it.
Yep. Yep. How do there's nowhere to go. Can I walk?
You're just a passenger.
Yeah, holy cow. Guys, any advice here? What should I do? You know what? It's funny that you say that. There's absolutely, like, I don't think physically, I know this isn't real, but I don't think physically I could let myself jump. Like, I don't think I could actually do it right now. Yep. What exactly is happening? Whew. Whew.
Yeah, turn around, look the other way towards the building.
Okay.
There you go. Oh, they just got the robot.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
So you're still on the platform, I believe.
Yeah, I sure am. Can I?
Okay.
Can I?
Look down at your feet.
Yep. Oh boy.
Look to your left a little bit.
Yeah. What am I standing on?
You're getting teleported up.
Oh.
So you're safe right now.
Oh, there it is. The mothership. Take me back to the womb.
Here we go. Uh-oh. What's going on now?
I don't know.
Take a look. Take a look down.
Yep. Whoa. I can't. Oh. That is legitimately stressful. I'm not kidding.
So how'd that make you feel?
That is stressful. Like, that is legitimately stressful. And it was surprising because whoever said jump, right? Like, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding in that, like, that felt real enough that I literally, even knowing that all I was going to do was go like that,
Yeah.
my body wouldn't let me do it.
Exactly.
It literally would not, like, I was like, it would not let me do it. That's crazy.
It's pretty awesome.
That thing is dangerous.
Yeah. Don't wear that while driving.
We should all be very afraid of that.
I can just.
I mean, and that is, I mean, just again to underscore the point, like, that is, I need to sit down for a second, you guys. But that is clearly, I mean, that is clearly not a real environment, right? Like, those robots aren't real.
Yeah.
It's semi-cartoonish. You know, like I'm aware I'm in a video game. I'm trying to imagine if somebody puts an experience like that together, which literally actually looks like I'm standing above a building like that.
Yeah.
And, like, the thought that's just, I don't know, it's terrifying.
Yeah, your brain takes that cartoon environment
I'm
and
like
makes it
trying
real.
to crawl away from you right now or something. I don't know.
Now, there's some other ones I've seen where people have like a plank going off the side of a building, and they actually use a real plank that's raised up slightly, just
Yeah.
like an inch off the ground. So you stand on it wearing that, and you walk out, and you can feel the edge of the plank.
Yeah.
But
so,
in your head, you're like, no, I'm 100 feet off the ground.
Totally.
And you'll see people like crawling out to the ends. I mean, look online, you'll see a lot of videos of that.
Wow. So, all right. So, I've put VR headsets on before. I've never done that kind of thing. I've never had that kind of an experience. So, what kinds of stuff are you working on? Is VR being used for? Like, how? Like, is that?
Well, besides
what it
games,
is?
I mean, games are great. I don't usually like people to do something super scary for the first time they're encountering VR.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, having an awesome meal and getting food poisoning. You'll never touch that food again. So everybody thinks it's funny to put somebody on a roller coaster and do that. And yes, I know I just did that for you here because we wanted to show it off. But
Worked.
I wouldn't
Never
recommend,
gonna
you know,
do
if
it
you
again.
have it and you bring your friends over, don't put them into an experience like that. Put them into something more comfortable so they can, you know, they're going to like VR and want to try it some more. But in terms of uses, I mean, obviously games, entertainment is great. They do some room scale stuff where they'll take this entire room, map it. You'll wear a headset with like a backpack until the wireless technology comes out for it. And, you know, this room is suddenly, we're underwater. and we're all running around inside the
Yeah,
room.
yeah.
So you're mixing reality with virtual reality, which can heighten it even more for excitement as well as fear. The fear in it can get very scary, though. I've tried a demo where the ceiling started to come down,
Yeah.
and it was like instant claustrophobia. I mean, I started to sweat. I'm like,
Yeah.
I had to take the thing off. Now, the amazing thing is, all you have to do is close your eyes, and it goes away. It's not like being
It's a
on
great point. Never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Seriously, it didn't.
Yeah, when you're freaking out, closing your eyes is the
Literally
last thing you
didn't-
want to do.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So besides entertainment, people are using VR now for phobias to get over fears of spiders, fear of public speaking. They have like virtual TED Talk rooms so you can practice your speech in front of an audience. You pick your size of your audience. They even have ones that are interactive where if you say and stuff, it detects your voice. And the audience will cross their hands or pull
They'll
out
be
their
like,
phones and kind of like, I'm losing the audience, I have to stay with them.
That's crazy.
So there's quite a bit that can be done. I mean, VR, it's awesome. And I think right now it's really good. It's only going to get better, which is great. But you can get kind of caught in that world at times.
How big is this industry? In terms of, are there hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people working on this stuff? How hard is it to put something like that together? How big is the scope of this?
I mean, forecasted financial-wise, it's in the billions. I mean, Oculus was bought by Facebook, so they're figuring out how to monetize that. I mean, once, they're the biggest company out there with
talk about scary.
3 billion people or something. I don't want to be in that experience and have things popping up in ads, though,
That will happen, and
Yeah,
it.
eventually, yeah. But it's, anybody who's worked on any games, anything with like Unreal Engine and some of those tools out there, there's a lot of open source stuff. You can just get involved and start working on simple modeling and stuff like that, and then take it further over time.
And if I want to be able to do that, like where do I go to get one of these? Like, is there a bunch of different kinds? Like, how do I start to get into like it?
Right now,
it
seems like there's three. There's the Oculus Rift from Facebook. There's the HTC Vive. Those are the two big ones. They're the expensive ones. They're in the $400 or $500 range, and they have these extra sensors here. There's LEDs, infrared LEDs in the helmet and the mask, and as you move around, it can detect where you are in space, and that's why you are able to sidestep.
Yeah.
So more so, if anybody's ever tried a Google Cardboard with a 360 video, you can spin around, but you can't go anywhere. When it's all rendered as a game or something, you can now walk through the room and do a lot more.
Yeah.
And in terms of fear, it can get pretty crazy.
It's powerful.
I think the on PlayStation VR is one of the other ones.
Yeah.
And they had a Resident Evil game that people said was a little too much.
Yeah.
Like they kind of pushed the envelope a little too far, and it is so realistic that you can really freak people out.
Are there people who are in this world who are thinking about that stuff? Like who are going like, hey, there actually is an element to this where you are having a visceral physical reaction to this. Like, is there sort of rules and best practices and sort of, like a moral code that are emerging as this happens, or is it totally the Wild West?
It's the Wild West, but people like me are trying to put some things in place.
Yeah.
Focusing back on like interface design and things like that. There's ways that when you're following with a camera, not to back up and turn to the side because it'll disorient the user. You could control what you looked at by turning your head around. If I wanted you to see something behind you and I spun the room, you'd fall over. Because you have to initiate it because it's locked to your view. You noticed if you rolled your head, everybody watching sees the screen going back and forth. But for you, it felt just like in this room when you roll your head, it stayed all in the correct perspective and everything. Correct orientation. So if I force something on you, you will get sick from that. You have to initiate the turn yourself, and then it's okay.
Wow.
So, there's stuff like that. There's also how does the interface come up? I don't want to bend down to the ground and do something I may fall over, or I don't want to look up at the ceiling.
Yeah.
I want to have it kind of floating out in space. So I'm looking at it from the interface and the overall user experience perspective. In terms of, should we be scaring people? That's up to whoever wants to design the thing, but I think you do have to think about the participants' well-being. It's, if you're writing this experience, you're responsible for them. And you've seen the videos online where the person gets scared and they like bolt and hit the wall.
Yeah.
So when I set this up here, I could actually set out a imaginary area, I used one of these controllers. And I kind of walked out and I made a grid. And I don't know if you noticed it in the headset, but if you walk too close to the stage,
Yeah, I
did
saw
you get
the little
blue?
green, the green grid.
That's like a
come up.
collision detection for your safety, so you don't
Oh,
hit
wow.
the stage, so you can kind of set your safe
And
zone.
you build that in.
Well, that's built into it. I just defined out the area for this room.
Oh, interesting.
As the rooms get larger, you can change that scale up if you want. But you know, you could come by, and if you don't think the table is here, you punch your hand right through the table and break
Totally.
your hand.
Totally.
So I do think it's in everybody's best interest who's working in VR to think about the user, and you're responsible for what happens to them.
Yeah. Yeah, and sort of in a way that's a little bit above and beyond with a traditional video game or a movie or something like that, because I'm physically having a reaction. I'm physically
Yeah.
standing and moving. I mean, the stakes are higher.
Yes. And I don't know if it's still a new technology, but I'm wondering if down the road, could people get PTSD from playing really, really crazy video games?
Yeah.
Because
You're
the
having
sky's the limit,
such a-
and it's so
yeah.
intense.
So I mean, we're touching a little bit, and in part, I think, because we're talking about fear, we're touching a little bit on the and you can kind of sort of sketch sort of the dark side of this, but is there the other side of that coin in terms of, you know, what VR can do beyond entertainment and sort of fun video games, taking advantage of those same things, the fact that you physically are really feeling things?
Yeah, there's a lot of people now that are focusing on VR for good, and I really like that concept, using empathy. They've filmed things in Syrian conflicts. How do refugees live in their camps? How is that experience? And you can kind of follow along with them and experience that. There was also one about a Brazilian prison and the overcrowding conditions, and you could see what it was like to be in there. So again, you're walking in someone else's shoes. I would love to see an application where you're in a wheelchair or you're blind, you know, and you kind of like almost want, like make a like an accessible city with parts of it that are inaccessible, and then you have a task and you do it in a wheelchair, and then you do it where you're partially blind or you're deaf. And so people can really understand what that's like, and I think that empathy is great. And it's the only way people are going to really start to come together and change things. There's also the phobia side of it that I touched on a little bit. So you can have stuff, again, like public speaking, fear of spiders. In a real application would not be just dumping you in a room and have spiders crawl over you. You know, that's not going to
That's not going to help anybody.
That doesn't help anybody.
Except for whoever's watching you with the headset
If you
on,
have
you're
a fear,
like screaming.
if
and
you have a fear of heights, a robot grabbing you out of a building and dropping you is not going to help that situation at all.
No, I know that firsthand now. Doesn't
exactly,
really help.
Exactly. But there's new technologies that are going to be added. Facebook just purchased an eye tracking company. So now they'll be able to see where your eyes are looking inside the mask, not only for menus, but for the metrics to know, like, okay, most people are doing stuff here. You could wear a heart rate monitor. I can monitor your heart rate. If it's not elevated, I can make that game scarier.
Wow.
You know, and keep you on edge. There are some design companies that have done that, and it got too intense because they kept them up too high, because you have to do a high-low to relax. And if they put you up there and ride you for too long, you're just going to throw the headset and never look back.
Amazing stuff. Kirk Membry, let's hear it for him.
Thank you.
And speaking of smarts, we've got another very smart speaker coming up now. Psychiatrist, teacher of psychiatry, and perhaps most importantly, zombie expert. So let's put your hands together and welcome to the stage right now, Mr. Steve Schlossman.
I'm a shrink. I'm a child psychiatrist. I am also a novelist. I've written a number of novels, but for whatever reason, the zombie novel just keeps following me around, and folks ask me to talk about it. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about a little bit today. But in keeping with the Harvard tradition, I think I need to begin by telling you about me. So I grew up in Kansas City. Went to college on the West Coast, taught high school English in California for a little bit. I have wanted to be a writer since I was 8 years old. I've wanted to be a physician since I was 26, and my dad made me. So at age 26, I came out to the East Coast for med school. I went to Dartmouth, then came down here to train, met my wife, made babies, settled down, in that order, which is good. It's the proper order, I guess. And then I really started missing writing a lot. And my wife, this is a sad story that has a happy ending. So my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2009, and I thought to myself, geez, this is really scary. My kids, who are now a senior and a seventh grader, and senior, by the way, is just so out of here. She's so ready to be done, and I'm ready to get her out, too. It's time for her to go to college. So I was downstairs watching whatever was on TV after I got everybody to sleep. My wife is absolutely fine now. We're more than 5 years out. That's all great and awesome. But at that time, I was scared. So that was like real fear, right? And what I was looking for was the kind of fear I grew up loving, and the kind of fear I'm going to talk to you a little bit about tonight, which is movie fear, the fun fear. Like the kind, and I'm going to ask some of you, because I bet there is nobody in this room who likes horror films. Not everybody likes them, but among the folks who like them, I'll bet everybody in here remembers the first movie they saw where they were really scared and had a blast. And I'm just going to ask you to shout out in just a second. But basically what happened is Night of the Living Dead was on TV. Why is Night of the Living Dead always on TV? Anybody know? It was never copyright. I think that's the proper past tense. So George Romero, who just passed away, who's finally getting his star next week in Hollywood. And he was a mentor of mine, and I was very sad to see him go, but I'm very glad that he's getting this well-deserved recognition. He was the chief cameraman for Mr. Rogers at the time, and not making that up. So he made Night of the Living Dead on his own dime, and he didn't think he'd be a filmmaker. So he made this film about, he called him zombie. He didn't know what else to call him. He actually originally called the movie Night of the Flesh Eaters, and it was changed to Night of the Living Dead by the publicity people, but he didn't know enough to copyright it. So the movie's eminent domain. So it was on TV. I was watching, and I thought to myself, I cannot make my wife better. That's up to the oncologist, but I can maybe cure these zombies because they're not real. So I sat down at the computer, and I wrote a fake science paper about the brain of a zombie, which we'll get into in a little bit. What's wrong with the zombie's brain? How can I tell from looking at them what could possibly be dysfunctional about their brain? And then I got contacted by a publisher who said, hey, would you write a novel about this? And because I'm in academia, I agreed to do it for free. And then somebody called me and said, no, they're a for-profit company. You get to actually get money for this. So I got an agent, and since then, I've sort of continued in this world, including the world of virtual reality, which is kind of cool. So my most recent project was writing a virtual reality screenplay for a virtual reality miniseries. I did that with Larry Fessenden, who's owner of Glass Eye Pix. He's a great independent filmmaker, and that right now is being shopped around Hollywood, so fingers crossed. The final piece I want to tell you about Romero before we get into the science of fear is when I was 11 years old, I snuck into Dawn of the Dead. I told my parents, and some of you heard me speak before I know this story, I told my parents I was going to see The Jerk, lied, and I grew up in Kansas City, was safe. You could walk to the theater, walk home. But I snuck into Dawn of the Dead instead, 1978. And I called my folks and said, I need a lift home. And they said, why? Is Steve Martin particularly frightening? And then I had to, come clean and said, no, I lied. I went and saw Dawn of the Dead. I lied. And so I got in all sorts of trouble, and not like horrible trouble. It was like, next time you're going to do this, you should just tell us, blah, blah, blah. So I got home. 30 years later, it all comes full circle. I call up Romero, and he options my book. So that's the sort of wonderful circularity among horror fans. They're really great, nice people. So before we do the science, I just want to do this shout out to George in his posthumous state, to Larry Fessenden, with whom I've worked now, and anybody who loves the industry. It is a really cool industry. And the musical scores, which you heard about earlier, they make or break these things. So let's transition. Thank you. No, I love them, and you love them too. So let me ask you, since you were clapping, and also you nailed that fear of Halloween question. First movie that scared you? Really? Okay, how old were you? 7. Yeah. He's never too young. Yeah, it's probably too young. But Night of the Living Dead, you were 7 years old. How'd you watch it?
I was on late night on TV on like a Monster Marathon type thing.
Okay, and were you by yourself or you with friends? Okay, anybody home?
Yeah,
Asleep, okay. So you were 7, Night of the Living Dead. It is a devastating film, but a great film. Give me another one, somebody. First movie. Wait, I heard The Exorcist. Who said The Exorcist? Okay, how old were you? 7, 8? Look, The Exorcist scares the, am I allowed to say crap at WGBH? I don't know. The Exorcist scares the crap out of me, and I'm Jewish. There's nothing that I should be afraid of there. It ain't real, and that movie gets me. But you were 7 too, right? Yeah, or 8. And It's a terrifying film. I heard somebody say Jaws. Who said that? How old were you? So are we detecting a theme here? 7, 7, 7. The average age that folks see their first horror film that they really enjoy is 11, actually, according to the market research. But that's an average, right? So there's going to be some younger and some older. And what that means is that there's something transgressive about horror films. You're getting away with it. You have to sneak watch it. For me, it was Salem's Lot, the made-for-TV version of Salem's Lot. I was home alone like you were home alone. I was in a wood-paneled basement. I had my dog next to me and some crappy Tostino's pizza. It said crap twice at WGBH now. Basically, that vampire started scratching on the window, and I turned on every light in the house. My folks were out. My sister's having a sleepover. I made crosses out of my dad's a doctor, so I made crosses out of tongue depressors. I was, again, the Jewish guy making the crosses is all messed up. So that movie really got to me. Since then, I've gotten really interested in what makes us afraid. Like, why would we sign up for this? And what are the things that you need to do in a film in order to really get the horror going, but not so much that you can't tolerate it? And everyone's got a different threshold. For some folks, Night of the Living Dead was too much. For other folks, it was just right. So I think when you think about the neurobiology of horror, there's a couple of key concepts that really matter. So my wife dared me to do that. I had to do it. Unlike Ian earlier, whose heart rate he claimed not to have gone, or no, he said he didn't get scared, but he didn't look scared. That's pattern recognition. That's the number one concept. So at a very early age, you get a sense of what you ought to see from somebody or something that you're seeing, right? From age 2. If you ask a 2-year-old, how do you know a dog is a dog and a cat is a cat? They're not going to say, well, kitties have retractable claws and funky pupils. They'll say, it looks like a dog. It looks like a cat. And that's an adaptive response. That's a biological, evolutionarily driven adaptive response so that you can size up your environment really quickly and know what to do. So horror films play with that. They introduce you to something like the apparently mild-mannered, bald, Jewish, Midwestern psychiatrist on the stage who suddenly screams at you like a madman. So it breaks the pattern, right? Clowns are not scary when they're in the circus or at a birthday party or rodeo. I mean, some folks don't like clowns, but actually absolute phobias of clowns are really rare. But if you see a clown in the sewer, like in the movie, in It, that's scary. If you see a clown in your backyard with a butcher knife, that's scary. It doesn't fit the pattern. Clowns belong in the rodeo. They don't belong in my backyard with a butcher knife, okay? So this is what horror films play with, but they can't do it all at once. If you just show somebody a clown with a butcher knife, that's not much of a film. You have to build up to it. So a lot of the neurobiology of building horror is playing with expectations, using things like the musical score, using jump scares, but the jump scares are usually distractions from the real scares. Because the real scares are almost never the thing that's scary in a good horror film, at least in my opinion. The real scares actually have more to do with some the interpersonal relationships among the people who are being scared. That, to me, is the most fascinating part of a horror film. It's not about the zombies. I could talk about, look, a movie just about zombies, that's like a movie about snails, right? That's boring. They just bump into each other. That's all they do. All you have to do to get away from a zombie is walk slightly faster that way. That's it. You could eat a sandwich while you're getting away. But you don't. That, to me, is what's so fascinating about zombie films, right? You have time to think. So coming up across the, foggy football field is something that you sure hope is your girlfriend, and it looks like your girlfriend, and yeah, she's dragging her foot in a funky way, and she's a little bit green, but maybe she's just hurt, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait just long enough for her to bite you, and then it's too late. And that's how these movies work. All you got to do is do this, right? And you get away, but you don't. That's where the pattern recognition plays with you, and then hope enters into it. Zombie films are not about the zombies. Zombies are about how we react to the zombies. That's actually what all good horror films are about. They're about how we react to the thing that scares us. So when you see a horror film, I know a lot of folks in the industry. I know Romero, or I knew Romero. Max Brooks and I hang out, and we've written stuff together. Larry Pheasant and I, we're all pacifists. These are not examples of what to do. These are cautionary tales of what not to do. If there's a zombie outbreak, you are going to leave behind your petty racist notions, your idea that I won't sit next to that guy on the bus, or I don't like people who are bald, or I don't. No, it's much better to be together than to be apart. That's a lesson for our time, if ever there were one, right? Like, we're better together than apart. So thank you. No, this is a good place to wrap up. This is the strength of horror films. We're playing with pattern recognition. So that jolt you did when I screamed at you, that was your amygdala, the almond-shaped structure in either hemisphere, amygdala is Greek for almond, that basically just says fight or flight, but then you kick it north to your frontal lobe and you think about it. If you don't think about it, then you just react. All the geeks like me who read Dune, you know the saying, fear is the mind killer. So if you don't think, that fear drives you to do something that you might later regret. The problem is the frontal lobe, from an evolutionary standpoint, came online pretty recently, whereas the amygdala has been online since anything has been online. So that amygdala, that screams really loud. It doesn't have a feeling associated with it other than fight or flight. Then you kick it north, and the ending point here is what makes a horror film fun isn't so much the amygdala screaming. If your amygdala is just screaming, nobody likes that. It's trying to understand why it's screaming. It's called a metacognition. I know I'm afraid. Why am I afraid? And if you talk to fans of horror films, that's the question they most enjoy asking. Why did that scene scare me? That's why people go to horror films together. That's why they scream at the screen, and that's why they see them over and over and over again. So if you do nothing else this Halloween, and if you're into them, there's some, like Happy Death Day is a fun movie. Go see a film in the theater. It's actually a lot more fun than watching it at home by yourself, although that first horror film, like Night of the Living Dead or Salem's Lot for me, and you watch by yourself, you never forget. Thank you very much.
Very good. Let's one more time, Steve Schlossman here. Very good. So you got hooked on the horror thing early.
I did.
Did you stick with it that whole time, and so as it sort of developed for you, give me a sense of some of the films along the way that took you from early on, just like, whoa, this is so cool, to where you are now. What were some of the sort of signature moments along the path?
I love this question. Thank you for asking this. This is like in High Fidelity, where my top 10 horror films.
Yeah, totally.
Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. I saw Night of the Living Dead after Dawn of the Dead. So Dawn of the Dead, when I was 11, that made a huge impact. The Shining, obviously, huge. I'll never look at twins the same ever again because of that. Alien actually is a fantastic film. Not just the gory stuff, even though the gory stuff is great, but the whole aesthetic to the film is amazing. In terms of less kind of intellectually driven films, Nightmare on Elm Street I adore because of the relationship to not just the dream state of teenagers, but also the fact that you develop, a good horror film allows you to develop sympathy for the villain, even though you know you have to destroy the villain. You kind of feel bad for Freddy. And I've met the actor who played Freddy. He's a nice guy, actually.
Robert Englund, is that his name?
Yeah, I brought my daughter to a horror convention, and he said, "Oh, is this your daughter? I used to bring my daughter all the time." And I was like, "Don't talk to him. That's Freddy. He's gonna get in your dream and kill you." And then as independent horror has been on the rise, there's been some gems lately. It Follows is an incredible film. Like The Babadook, which is on Netflix right now, amazing film and a great commentary on what it's on the fears of being a mom. There's a movie called The Devil's Candy right now, and there's a movie called They Look Like People, which is a very psychiatrically riveting film. And then older, Repulsion, the Roman Polanski film. I could go on forever, but those are some ones that come to mind.
So, as somebody who is both like totally into the film world and also into the academic world, I wonder if people were hearing you talk about the psychology of fear, what's going on inside of the brain and stuff, and they kind of want to know more about that. Is there a book or two? Like, is there a good sort of if I want to start to understand this, but I'm not an expert, but like I'm intrigued by what you're saying.
By I'm going to make sure I understand what you're asking. About why people get afraid or about why people get afraid in
in
movies.
general, like some of the things that you're talking about in the context of horror movies, but I think in general is kind of fascinating.
I think there's a lot of, I'm happy to sort of rattle off a bunch of books about the topic in general, but I love stories. So I think a better ticket into understanding this is to pick up things, read The Handmaid's Tale. Pick up things that people find scary for all sorts of different reasons, and then ask yourselves, or watch and find scary, and ask yourselves, why am I afraid of that? And then you can go back and look more generally at neurobiology, or even at the molecular level of what's going on there. But that's going to get you a lot further than any textbook, because we don't understand things in terms of textbooks. We understand things in terms of stories.
Steve Schlossman, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you guys for coming. That's it for us tonight.
Would you want me to stay up here? Did they want?
Let's give him another round of applause.
That's not what I meant. She told me to stay up here. I'm going away. I'm